water in the fruit itself, so that way, ideally, if we would, I know it doesn't seem like it now when we have 80-degree temperatures outside, but eventually when we do get our first freeze and so forth like that, those water, those fruit with a lot of water holding capacities and everything are going to freeze up, and they're just not going to be good for any type of use anymore and stuff like that. Your hardy vegetables are going to be more of your cold crops, your cabbage, your lettuce, your cabbage, your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts, celery, different things like that. Those can really last under very extreme temperatures. We don't usually get a lot of those temperatures down here in Southwest or Southeast Texas. So we're usually pretty good on being able to grow those. And your semi-hardy vegetables are going to be more your root crops, like your, say, for example, your carrots and so forth, parsnips and different things. While the tops might freeze and eventually die off, the roots will grow down and they'll keep growing. And actually, they do better. They get a little bit sweeter once they go through the freeze process. And there's a chemical reaction that happens with the fruit itself that helps it out. So those are just some clarifications there. Talking a little bit about preparing herbs for the winter. This is a really pretty picture here, and it kind of shows you how you can use herbs in individual pots. They can obviously be planted in garden sections as well. Um, they do thrive very well in garden sections. You just have to be careful. Some of them can be very, um, they get, what's the word for it, Brandy? They like the rosemary.
Are you saying hardened off?
No, like they tend to get wild.
Like
They
in
grow really
Switzerland?
big. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not
So
really sure.
yeah. I'm sorry. So in the back picture, you have some basil, you have some rosemary up in the front, you have some mint, some curly leaf parsley, some dill, and so forth. So um, there is a um, flyer that Brandon's going to share with y'all on the different types of herbs, some recommended varieties. Herbs do really well in good sunlight, and you need really good drainage for them. They don't like sitting in a lot of water. Their roots like to be moist, but not really, really wet. And they can go for months because all you're going to actually be needing from them is just a few little um, pieces of the herb, to cook with. You might need a leaf or two of basil. You might need like a small branch of rosemary or a small leaf of mint. So these can go a long way, as you can see. So doing a few chores now is definitely going to help you prepare your garden for later. And we already talked about this, and to know when to call it quits on your summer veggies. Um, Again, those summer crops are coming to an end. They're getting really spindly now. Even though you might have a one or two tomatoes still hanging on for life, and you think, oh, well, I just want to get one or two more out of it, or a cucumber or anything like that, just go ahead and pull it out of the garden. It so you can start working on that your soil amendments and so forth like that. And again, if it looks like it's been, if it's something that might have gotten hit by disease, or if you think it might be a sick plant or something, you really shouldn't have left it in there that long. But if you have, make sure if you have a compost pile, don't put that in your compost pile. You want to put all those disease looking or insect riddled plants or anything like that in a separate pile in a bag. You can bury them. You could, but you definitely want to keep them separate. You don't get them mixed up in your compost pile, because what happens as soon as you put them in the compost pile, it acts as a breeding ground for there. And the next thing you know, in the spring, when you're taking your fresh compost out, you're not only taking fresh compost out, but you're also taking all those disease organisms out, all those insects and everything, and spreading them all out. And then you're back, you're just really um, making things a lot worse for you. Soil conditioning and soil testing is a must. Soil conditioning, what we're talking about there is this is the fall is the time where you want to come in and add your top layer of your mulch or any type of your packaged manure, any type of soil amendment that you're going to use to increase the water holding capacity of your soil, the nutrient capacity of your soil, and so forth. And then if you haven't done a soil test in your garden section lately or in your yard over the last 2 to 3 years, I would say go ahead and get that done. If you want to contact us here at the office, we do have instruction sheets on how to do your soil test, and we have where you send them off to. They are actually sent off to College Station. We have the little bags that you put your soil in. It's roughly about $12 for a test for the minimum nutrient requirement test. You do get a sheet back with a soil analysis on what you're good with. Say, for example, if you're needing nitrogen or if you're needing lime or anything like that, it's going to tell you on that particular soil analysis. Okay, so now is the time to do that. If you've never added a cover crop to your garden section before, or even your yard, now is a good time to do that. It depends on the size of your garden too. If you have something like a truck patch, which I call is maybe like if you're out in a rural area and you have something that might be a half an acre or something, or if you have the little garden boxes in your backyard or something, you can always plant winter rye or crimson clover or something like that and till those up in the spring, and that's going to add added nutrients to your soil. The clover is going to add nitrogen to your soil and so forth like that. So it's just another way to keeping things green and pretty during the blah kind of dark days of winter. You don't have to do it. It's just something you might want to consider if you never have before. It's just a really good natural way of putting nutrients and so forth back into the soil that you don't necessarily have to buy in a bag as a fertilizer or something like that. And lastly, do an honest evaluation of your garden. If you have a garden already, look at it. And again, we kind of touched on this a little bit before. What plants work well for you? What plants work best grown next to one another? Do you need to move your garden? Is it getting enough sunlight in this area? Do I need to focus on different types of plants? If I'm working with ornamentals, I had roses before, do I need to look at a different type of rose bush, now, looking at it and so forth. So this is something that, during the downtime of the fall, you have that time to kind of sit back and plan. One of my favorite flowers in the winter is the pansy. And the development on the pansy has really come a long ways in the last couple of years. The color variations on these have just become spectacular. There's lots of color and a variety of faces. And when they talk about the faces, that is the like in that bottom right-hand corner, you see those yellows and the purples with the black face and so forth. So that's what they're talking about when they say faces. Pansies are one of the easiest flowers to be able to design with in your yard. If you're going for a particular color pattern or so forth, they will work well with a lot of other plants in the garden with different types of textures and so forth. So you have in the picture next to it, on the left-hand side, you have some ornamental kale planted next to it with the white and the purple pansies, and you got the ornamental grass in the back standing up. Top right hand, you got the beautiful white tulips with the white pansies down below. There's no question what color of pansies you're always going to be getting. So you go with a specific, I guess, intent of looking for particular colors of pansies. So you can actually design, you can do something just random colors. You can do something all in shades of purples. You can do something all in shades of oranges or reds and what have you. It's literally a palette of paint that you can just, paint your yard whatever colors you want. So a couple of tips on working with pansies are choose full sun, and you need some well-drained areas of soil. And by doing that, you want to plant them on beds that are raised from 6 to 12 inches above the surrounding soil. And you want to put about 4 inches of organic matter on the top that you're going to work into that soil. By planting them about 6 to 12 inches above the soil, you're going to really be able to showcase them off, because they're not a tall plant, obviously. For those of you who've worked with pansies before, they're pretty low to the ground. And the ones that are even smaller are the violas. So you really have to make sure that they don't get covered up by a lot of your other tall plants in your ornamental beds and so forth. Broadcast fertilizers such as 10-10-10 at a rate of 2 cups per 100 square feet over the bed. And you're going to want to place your plants about 8 to 10 inches apart. A good tip is plant from the inside out, because the plants actually are very tender. They can easily be broken. So if you're working with a particular bed, it's best if you start from the inside out. That way you won't have really a lot of broken plants to deal with. Mulch with about 2 to 3 inches of pine straw or shredded mulch. And then you're going to want to keep the bed moist but not too wet, and water early in the morning if you can. And I kind of give you a little time frame there of about 6 to 9 in the morning if you can. If you water too late in the day, it doesn't, the evaporation process doesn't really happen. And so that will cut that down, and that's going to cause more disease to be held or to happen within the plants, because you're not having that water escape. So anytime you have excess water around plants and so forth, that's just a breeding ground for more disease and pests and so forth like that. So you want to try and plant them or water them early in the morning, so that way that evaporation process can happen. And then always you want to deadhead old blooms about every week. Go through your flower bed, because that does take away the energy from your growing plants to produce new flowers and so forth. Next, we're going to talk about maintaining perennial flower beds. And we know that perennials are flowers that come back year after year. Annuals are ones that come back only yearly. Two of my favorite perennials there are the black-eyed Susan and the purple coneflowers. Really, really cool flower for the fall time frame. These work really beautiful in the fall landscape with a mixture of ornamental grasses. You can keep your ornamental grasses definitely up until the spring. A lot of the ornamental grasses are making their seed pods or seed plumes now. They're very wispy, I guess, in the wind now, which is really, really attractive. And so you can definitely keep those up until the spring. We talked a little bit about beneficial insects sheltering among the old plants and seed heads. Coneflowers and black-eyed Susans can be left. We also want to remember our bird friends and so forth, to self-sow for creating more native flowers. Long after the petals will drop off of these two particular flowers, those center areas are full of little seeds. And they're like, as soon as you get a little breeze blowing in the air, or some bees coming by, or somebody passes by with their pants and they kind of brush up against them, there's a release of like thousands of seeds in the air. And this is just nature's way of reseeding itself, pollination and so forth. So this is a great thing. So you don't necessarily have to cut these back. They make good dried flower arrangements and so forth. But some of the other flowers like bearded iris and lilies, you're going to want to cut back to about 3 to 5 inches. And you're going to always want to remove diseased plant material from the garden. And again, we talked about this earlier. Do not compost these as they will persist in your compost pile. Next, we want to, sorry, I had to take a drink. Prepare your trees and shrubs for winter. So as much as you might want to go ahead and prune any of your shrubs or trees right now in your landscape, you definitely want to hold off until the spring for that. If you trim any trees or prune anything right now, that's going to be the sign for that tree or that shrub to go ahead and start putting out new foliage, new tender shoots and so forth. And what's going to happen is in a couple weeks, once we start getting those cooler temperatures here, hopefully, knock on wood, those tender shoots aren't going to be able to survive in those definitely more extreme cooler temperatures that we're going to be facing down here. We won't be facing like a lot of the temperatures that you will in North Texas and snow and different things like that. But it is going to stunt the tree, and it is not going to be good for the tree's stress. Okay, so just go ahead and wait till the spring on doing any type of large pruning or any type of shaping of the shrubs and different things like that. If you happen to have any citrus trees and they call for, and again, this is like later on, probably like December, January, and stuff like that, and they call for a heavy freeze, circle them. The best way that I do it is get some chicken wire, build like a cylinder around the base of the tree, stuff it with hay, and then you should get some type of protective cover to go over the top of it to keep that frost from settling on the tree, because that's what's going to damage the leaves and so forth. So again, if you have a tree, a lemon, a citrus, a grapefruit, satsuma, kumquat, any types of citrus trees like that, they are not going to hold up really well under a long set of freezing temperature days. So who knows what we might be in for like later on this winter. So just be prepared. Make sure that you watch the weather, keep up with that and so forth. And especially if it's a new plant, if it's a new tender growth plant that you might have just put in like within the last year or two, you're definitely going to want to take more care of that as opposed to a stronger, older tree, but you're still going to want to give some attention to that as well. Don't forget about your bird friends. If you have bird feeders out there, definitely keep them topped up. They love a lot of high-fat feed at this time. The suet, the sunflowers, all those things like that. They just really love because we do have a shortage of fresh seeds and so forth to go around out there. So it's just something for the nature lovers and all of us that we want to keep our feathered friends happy during the year and keep coming back. You definitely want to keep continue to water transplanted trees and shrubs until the first frost. We are kind of under a dry spell right now. It has been quite a while since we've gotten any significant rainfall. I've noticed at my apartment complex lately that I need to tell them that I don't think their drip irrigation system's really working well, because they just spent a lot of money on doing a lot of fall transplanting in the flower beds like calendulas, snapdragons, dusty miller, and different things like that. And I would say probably about 50% of it has died off already because they did not follow up with water or anything. And the plants are just drying up like it's the middle of summer. We have been going through some extreme heat these recent days. The last couple of days, probably in the temperatures of about 80 degrees with no water. And so plants need water. I mean, that is one of the survival things that they need, So don't forget to water. And if you're going to water trees and shrubs and plants and everything, water deeply and water at least once a week. Don't just do shallow watering, because shallow watering encourages shallow root growth. Deep watering encourages deep root growth. And then you can also bring some outdoors in for this the winter: hydrangea, berry branches, ornamental grasses, seed pods for decoration. Those are always fun to decorate with. I know a lot of my friends use those. There's sometimes a mess to kind of clean up, but I guess that comes with part of it. So next we're going to talk a little bit about your garden tools, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people really pay attention to when the growing season's over, and they kind of finish with all their vegetables and everything, and they have their little outdoor shed. They're just like, okay, well, I might just squirt off the water, the shovel, kind of knock a little bit of dirt off of it. If you're good, maybe put the hoe up, and make sure you don't leave it outside. Other people leave it outside, then it gets rusted and stuff. A lot of these equipment, cost money, so it's expensive to replace each year. So if you invest in really good equipment, you definitely want to be able to have that last for several years. Okay, so a little bit of effort goes a long way with this, especially if you have tillers and mowers. Some of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to empty the fuel tank of fuel, or you add a fuel stabilizer. Since you won't be running your power equipment for quite a while, for several months and everything like that, that fuel stabilizer will keep the system from freezing up and so forth. Okay, so or you can just empty the fuel tank and get rid of that old fuel, because that old fuel is going to sit in there, and it's going to just get cloudy and it's going to get clogged and so forth like that. So a fuel stabilizer is going to keep that fuel clean and so forth. Now's a good time to check your spark plugs, change the oil, and clean the air filter if you're not really good about doing that throughout the summer months. Definitely you want to catch up on those chores in the fall, because that is something that needs to be done fairly often, especially changing the oil and changing that air filter. Air filters can get clogged up really quickly, and that can affect the overall maintenance of your machine. Perform a thorough cleaning of an underside of mowers. If you have a pressure washer, you might want to use one. Just a heads up though, if you're going to be cleaning the bottom of your mower, or any type of structure that you're going to be washing grass seeds from, say for example, if you use that same mower on a pasture and you use it on your yard as well, keep in mind that anytime you're going to be bringing seeds in from another area, you're going to be crossing those seeds. So if you want to keep your grass at your house nice and pretty with just St. Augustine grass, and you don't want to introduce any Bermuda or anything like that, when you're washing your equipment, make sure you wash it in an area that those grass seeds, whenever you wash it, are not going to get mixed up with your native lawn or so forth, or your lawn that you have very manicured and so forth. So just keep that in mind. Always consult your owner's manual for further instructions. Shovels, hose, and other tools. Again, you're going to want to just clean with soap and water. And then another little tip is that just apply a little household oil. And this is household oil, can be just vegetable oil or so forth. And that's going to keep the rust off of it. So before you apply the oil, make sure it's dry. You might want to let it sit out in the sun for a day or two, and then come back in with a coat, get a old rag or what have you, and get some vegetable oil. Don't get anything super expensive, obviously, and just apply a thin coat of oil on there, and it will keep the rust off of it on your shovels, your rakes, your hose, your spades, and different things like that. If you haven't had your blades sharpened in a while, and you have a grinder and you're experienced in doing that, I would suggest go ahead and do that. If you're not experienced in doing that, you might want to go ahead and ask a professional to help you out with doing that. And then lastly, tomato cages. If you use those in your garden, go ahead and clean those off, stack them out the way, and repair any that might be damaged. Getting ready to wrap up, guys. Fire ant treatment time. We all know that fire ants are very active during the warmer months of the year. But if you're going to be working with treatment of fire ants, and right now, again, we're talking about fall for the spring. Fall is the time to start spreading or preparing your lawns if you have fire ant problems for the springtime. Red and black imported fire ants, just to kind of give you some information here. And Brandy's got a couple good flyers, informational flyers from Texas A&M that I'm gonna get her to share with you on fire ants and so forth, because there's just so much. There's a couple different eradication methods. You can buy over the counter from any of your big box stores, fire ant baits and herbicides. You can find the dry granules. You can find the liquid one where you apply with hoses, a wet liquid, and you spray on your lawn and so forth like that. But they are imported. They can injure or kill and have been known to kill livestock, wildlife, and domestic animals. Like I said, fall is the best time to treat fire ants. Collectively, fire ants or collectively ants till more earth than earthworms, and some prey on other insects to help reduce pest numbers. So not all ants are bad. Some ants are good, beneficial insects. So we just kind of have to be careful. Obviously, if you see a mound in your pasture or in your yard, that's usually pretty good indication you have fire ants. But if you just have regular ants in your yard and they're not really causing any problem or anything like that, the best thing you want to do is just get those identified, find out if they're a bad ant or if there could be possibly a good ant, and we can help you out with that. So just don't assume that all ants are bad ants. And you can individually treat fire ant mounds. This is the least effective method of doing this, or you can go with several other ways here, which I have listed as a registered insecticide in either a liquid solution or granular product over a whole yard. This usually results in about 90 to 95% reduction in ants over the winter time. But you always going to want to follow the instructions carefully. And especially, guys, if you have young children playing in the yard and come in contact with grass and so forth, you're going to want to pay special attention to that. And then also if you have domesticated animals like cats and dogs and so forth, these insecticides can actually go and soak through the pads of their paws, and they can get sick that way and so forth. So you just have to read the labels before you purchase anything. If you have questions about them, you can reach out to us. We'll be glad to help you out. A lot of times just reading the labels have to be very, very descriptive. They will tell you if you can use them around certain areas, if they're harmful to certain pets and so forth like that. So just be careful with that and read thoroughly, okay? All right, so remember, in wrapping up, we are just going to want to say, no matter what your garden looks like, guys, and I have 4 different pictures there of gardens, and I could have put pictures all day, from people's gardens. It's really what you come up with and what you have the time for and what you have the space for, all right? So don't ever overdo yourself. This is meant some gardens are meant to be relaxing to people, and they should be a joy to work in, and they should be something that you get enjoyment out of and that you're going to get a reward out of, whether it be ornamental flowers or whether you get vegetables out of it and different things like that. So remember, always remove plant matter from the garden, dispose of diseased plants separately. If you have a compost pile, go ahead and get it cooking. Turn those over once a month, add water to them. Water and constant turning is going to add that heat to it. Anytime you add stuff to your compost pile, remember, try and break down as little as possible. Leaves, guys, I didn't talk about leaves right now, but a lot of people are raking up leaves and putting them in bags and then sending them off to the landfill and everything. If you can, mulch those leaves, guys. Run over them with a lawnmower, get them cut up to really small sizes, and then put those in your compost pile. The smaller the size of the particles or the items in your compost pile, is going to be easier to break down, and it's not going to take as long. All right. So if you put a whole leaf in a compost pile, it's going to take up more room, and it's going to take more time to break down, as opposed to taking a shredder or a lawnmower. And actually, you can buy blades now for lawnmowers. I don't know how many of you cut your own yards and so forth like that, but you can buy shredder blades, which actually cut the grass and the leaves into finer particles that will fall into the grass, and it doesn't sit on top of the grass. As long as leaves sit on top of the grass, when you have moisture and you have rain that comes, that holds moisture, and that, again, we talked about moisture before, that encourages disease growth and everything, and that disease growth from those leaves under it will then transfer down to your lawn, and then it's going to spread from there. So you definitely want to get those leaves off your lawn, but you definitely want to chop them up and put them around as a mulch, but or you put them in your compost pile, or you put them in your garden site for like later on this spring, and then you start working those up so they can start breaking down. Start planning up your new garden beds if you're going to be adventurous for the spring. We talked about using those fall leaves wisely. Protect your garden saw. If you want to cover it with any type of structure, whether it be visqueen or cardboard or carpet or anything like that, to keep it in a dark area where the sun doesn't hit it over the winter, and that doesn't encourage weed growth or anything like that, you can definitely do that. Or just cover it with mulch, pine straw, leaves, anything that won't blow off or anything like that, it would be really good. Consider some crop rotation. We talked about that. Test and improve your soil. Now's the time to add those layers of mulch, soil amendments, spreading good quality manure and so forth like that. Do that. Testing, have your soil tested. If you need soil testing instructions, you can contact our office. And then lastly, store tools and machinery correctly. So there's that good looking guy that's been talking to you the whole time. So here is my information. Again, I'm Shannon Dietz. I'm with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, Harris County. I am the Ag and Natural Resources Agent. There's my email address and our office phone number. We are located at 13105 Northwest Freeway off of 290. Super easy to get to. And if you are on Facebook, guys, we would love to have you sign up and become a member of our family. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Harris County ANR. And we post a lot of information for classes and informational subject matter from Texas A&M and stuff like that. So with that being done, Brandy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Shannon, for that. Thank you, everybody that has attended today. As a reminder, I will be doing the holiday plant care talk next week. So that's going to include, like poinsettias, amaryllis, cyclamen, things like that. And then we have the 2 programs in December. Again, thank you, Shannon. And let me check. I think I answered most of the questions. I'm just going to look real quickly. Okay, there are no pressing questions. So thank you all very much. And we're going to go ahead and end this session. Thank you for attending.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Shannon, if you can go ahead and end the meeting.